So we spoke to Ryan to get his interest very early on in running the project. When he went and returned the contract over, we were like, well, do you want to run the project? Do you want to do you know what I mean? Do you want to handle it? And he said no or whatever. He just wants to build shit was his response. Go ahead, Doug.
So you were telling me the other day, Booty. I think maybe you didn't mention it in this about the B&B that you did get available to you that you paid off existing debts that Flavors hold, marketing or something like that. Will you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. So when I got off that last call with Ryan, and it was apparent that he didn't want to turn the contract over, there was a significant amount of tokens in the dripper and things like that, and I didn't know whether what his interest was after that call and continuing the project on his own or doing whatever. So I'm like, yo, at least for our community members who are losing money, like, and you know what I mean, so I can take care of the transactions that the things that we have outstanding. Like, let me get my admin privileges back. And he pretty much was like, well, yeah, you get your admin privileges back, and you'll have access to this. He pretty much gave me like limited access, and then it was like, don't call him ever again. So there was $3,000 in the creamery at that time. By the time I had pulled it to pay off our marketing obligations at a discount. So I'm not gonna put their name out there, but shout out to them for giving us a discount on and being able to end the contract early. The price of B&B had shot down, so it was about 2,500, and I just cleared the rest of it. Personally, and then there was some other debt that needed to be cleared. But I think like at the last day, before I officially signed off, there was like 1.5 B&B in the creamery, and I just kind of dished it out to our holders who never sold. Harold, what's up?
What's good with your brother, man? Like I said, man, just this is space we in, things happening, stuff. I'm just, I was a Flavors holder. I came over from her, of course, in support of Rover. And, I read over, what Ryan had to say and everything like that. So, I was just really, more detailed about how he's presenting everything and what he's saying happened with screenshots, and things like that. Did you, I guess I got in a little late, but, that's kind of where I'm at with, like, he's like showing, screenshots. I don't know what the full conversation was, but as far as migrating over to X Moon and things like that, he's presented like he
Nah,
trying. You get
100%,
what I'm
hundred
saying?
percent. I haven't read all of where. If anybody get that to me, I haven't read like his whole synopsis of everything. I've only read what was on Fonzie's page.
I'll
What I
send you the document. It's a full PDF. It's like 3 or 4 pages.
He
yeah
deleted it
that
though.
yeah
It's
that
not there no more. You can't find it. If you click on that link, it'll say error found. He deleted the doc. You can't just go read
No,
yeah
it no
that,
more.
no, no. I emailed it to myself, so I have the PDF.
awesome. Yeah, six
Okay.
packs, six packs. Send that to me. But
Yeah.
what I can say is going
Crazy
over.
people write a lot of words, and that crazy
No,
son of a bitch
Cowboy,
is
I,
in here
I
right
do want
now.
to go over. I do want to go over what he said. Because in fairness, from what I was able to read on Fonzie's page, it wasn't all wrong. So you have him saying to the holders of now safe room, please take a moment or whatever. The Flavors project was unsuccessful and the team disbanded. The token is still tradable, but the Daption social media account will no longer be maintained. The taxes have been set to the minimum allowable values. Drifts are set to actual SD, and you'll receive yours on any flavor
Well, what I'm
transaction.
trying to say is that Ryan is in the room. He could certainly answer these questions for other people.
Okay. All right. Well,
I'm not trying to start anything.
no, no, no,
It's
Harold.
narratives being painted. You get what I'm saying? And like,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
listen to
No.
you in the voice chat, and then I read his stuff. It's just narratives, and
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
two
No, I get it.
lines drawn.
No, absolutely, I get it. But I think a lot of things that Ryan hit on from what I was able to read were correct. Again, that we felt as a team. It was a team effort. It wasn't one person. It was a team of people involved. I was definitely complacent in a lot of things that I probably should have been looking at or been aware of earlier. I just kind of didn't pay attention to a lot of those areas. So definitely was a team thing. A major contributor was the industry itself. Yes, BNB is down 44%, 44, 45%, whatever it is. So that's instantly going to cut the value of your tokens in half. You know what I mean? Um, so there's some key stuff in here. Decisions. Ryan disagreed with the decision to bring on some devs, which for better or worse, the decision was made to bring them on to work on a new DApp. We had discussed that with Ryan, and that he would kind of oversee it, and Ryan kind of went MIA. So for whatever went MIA for about 3 weeks. So the decision was that we wanted to keep timelines of things and deliver things in within a reasonable amount of time. So we did decide to go ahead and bring on those devs, and that was costly, and it was some I did feel like we were paying them at some point to learn, but it is what it is. We wanted to be able to put out a new DApp before next year. Doug, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to read or talk to context about what that Fonzie, what we could read in that Fonzie post where he circles Booty wants to rug flavors and then circles yes and then writes down his narrative. But what was actually in context of what was actually written in those screenshots doesn't say anything like that. So in my opinion, he's trying to paint a narrative there.
Well, yeah,
Exactly,
Ryan's up
and
here.
that's why I
Ryan's up
wanted,
here.
and that's why
Ryan's
I
up here
wanted
now.
Booty to kind of step on that, because that's like it's a narrative to me, and that's why I wanted
Well,
him to kind
yeah.
of touch
So
on it.
so let me address that. We got to the point where we were trying to get control of the contract, and we felt. And Ryan's up here, and he can explain himself also. We got to the point where we were trying to get control of the contract, and we felt like there was no, it wasn't going to work
Okay,
out.
hold on. Stop.
Right? Getting
Okay.
control of
Let me
Ryan.
say
Let me
something.
finish, and then you
Okay.
can.
All right. Go ahead. Go
Let me
ahead.
finish, and then you can go ahead. We got to the point where, and there's a lot more context for that. We got to the point where, we felt like we wasn't going to get control of the contract, and me and some other holders, were looking at other ideas to see, how we can, save the project and save investors' money, and that was a thing. That was a decision. And that was a talk that we had as a group of holders, the main investors who were left in, after the large dump, and so that was something that was presented to me, and I asked Ryan about it. It wasn't me trying to rug holders or anything like that. But Ryan, go ahead. Feel free to respond.
Okay. So you've been saying that I refused to give over the contract, and initially, and by the way, that link is back up. I don't know what the old one broke, but I posted that for that thing. It's 37 pages. So I would recommend, if you had money invested in this and you want to read both sides of the story, please read the whole thing. But so you were saying that I refused to give over the contract, and yes, initially I did, absolutely, because I was furious about what the allegations on me were and what was going on. But eventually, that's completely not true. Eventually, I was working with you. I was mediating through Carissa, so I wouldn't lose my cool, so that we could just get it done. And I was going to do anything that you required. I mean, it took me 2 days to figure out exactly how to do this, because I was hard coded into this contract, so it would have required a lot of work. I gave you a lot of options on how I could do it. I even offered to totally launch a new contract and was going to give you 24 hours to give me any upgrades you wanted to put in it that would completely 100% write me out. I was going to do another DApp for migration. I was going to handle, up to everything for you. I was going to literally do anything that you wanted. I was going to play ball 100%. So to say that I wasn't going to give it over and that negotiations broke down is an outright lie.
But it's true you wanted to get paid again for that, correct?
Excuse me, it's not again. It's not again. That was the deal.
Or continued.
Correct. Because that was the deal. That is the deal that was originally agreed upon. And it wasn't until somebody else got in a fight with somebody that wasn't the deal. It wasn't you stop getting paid when we don't like you. It was none of that. It was whether it's successful, whether it fails, that was the deal. And I am going to stick by what we agreed upon. So I would have written myself out of the contract so that I could still keep my payment, or I would have launched an entirely new one where I could still keep my payment. But I was going to keep that regardless because that was the deal.
All right. So with that said, Ryan did present a list of options through Carissa. It was a very detailed list and different things, and I did respond back to that of what we needed, right? But I think when we were on the phone, Ryan said, "Hey, this is going to take 3 weeks to complete." You know what I mean? So again, we were looking at all our options. Ryan said, "Hey, you know what? This is what I could do." We gave him the list to complete, and that was that. Again, we got on the call with Ryan. It didn't feel like Ryan was going to give back the contract. And
Right. Okay.
again,
Now pause right there because what you're saying is not something that's just possible. There's no such thing as just give back the contract. I'm hard coded into the thing.
100%,
It's not a click of a button. It's not a click of a button.
And I want to note that right here that you're hard coded into the contract, which you shouldn't have been, and it was not the original intention.
Because that was the agreement. That was the agreement.
Not the original
that was the agreement for my payment. Yes. No. That was the agreement for my payment. I was hard coded in the contract for my payment. That was exactly how it was supposed to be.
Okay,
there was no reason whatsoever for me to be able to take myself out of it because that would have gone against our original deal.
Right.
Hey,
So,
I
again,
don't want to be disrespectful.
hold on, Harold.
Can I ask that y'all kind of like let us hear y'all? We just hear a lot. I'm just trying to.
Right, but when he's outright lying, I'm going to cut him off. When he's outright lying, I'm going to cut him off. Okay.
All right. So the idea of the contract again was that that if somebody needs to be removed from the project, they wouldn't be able to cause harm to the project, and they want for everybody, including the developer. So the way that Ryan hard coded himself into and his 1% fee into the contract was he hard coded it into the developer wallet, which made it so you can't remove Ryan and you can't separate Ryan from that fee. So I'll say that's a technical that was a technical flaw or whatever. Also, in addition to that, it was and this is where. And I think this is a real learning moment because we say smart contracts all the time, and we can use smart contracts to replace legal contracts. For me, in hindsight, if I could have had a legal document stating, everything from the beginning and how it was, because obviously, talking and word agreements don't work even in this space. And smart contracts are only as good. Smart contracts are only as good as they coded. And you'll see this in the conversation where that me and Ryan had on Twitter, where I'm like, hey, you weren't supposed to code yourself into the contract like that. And Ryan says, I did this as a protection for myself because I knew you would try this.
Yeah, and you did. Because if you had a legal contract,
a word agreement instead of a document agreement.
We didn't need any of that because it was hard coded into a smart contract that cannot be changed.
Anyone who goes into a business knows that you have to have something on paper. Why would you
guys
not do it on paper?
Yeah, that sounds 100%.
I've never done any business with any partner without.
That shit is obsolete. Does nobody understand what we're trying to do in DeFi? Do you not understand the concept of DeFi whatsoever? That shit is obsolete. What we are doing is beyond that. We don't need that because it's hard coded on the blockchain and cannot be changed. A piece of paper can be ripped up. People can.
But according to you, nobody understands that but you.
You clearly don't.
Exactly. Yes.
Right. You clearly don't. I know.
Well, according to you, nobody does. So you are the one that gets all authority because nobody else understands it.
So you're
If
just looking after yourself. That's what that contract is telling you.
Hey, I just muted everyone real quick. I'm gonna let everybody talk. I just want to say that this is common amongst devs. If you guys stood up and you heard Papa come out and say, "Oh, I'm not signing an NDA," or I'm not signing this," or "I would never work for a company that signs that." This is common in the space, and smart contracts are meant to avoid situations like this, but they're only as good as they're written to the original intention of what it was supposed to be. In this case, yes, while it's debatable, even if Ryan was supposed to receive 1% forever, that 1% could have been coded in a contract in a way that allowed the contract to function the way it was supposed to function, which was to allow me to remove him as the dev. He coded it in a way where it didn't allow for that. That's correct, Ryan, right?
Could it have? Yes. But if you tried to change any of these advanced settings on there, you would have locked up the token forever. You tried to change the drip once on your own, and you did lock the token for about an hour or so. I came in quietly behind and I fixed it. Okay. There's a reason. There is a reason that you should not have access to certain functions because you simply don't understand them, and you would break it, and everybody's money would be locked forever.
Awesome. So that's something that I wanted to touch on because you came in the space full of investors and said that before. And that's one of the things that early on, we had asked for. We asked for, hey, give us a rundown, give us a breakdown of the functions and how they work and how to use them, right? Because again, this contract wasn't really ever meant to be, dependent on one person. In fact, that goes
running.
against the
spirit. It's still running. It's still going.
No, I
understand.
Work. No, I understand.
There's nothing wrong with it. It works like it did on, it works better than it did on day one, actually.
No, I understand. Absolutely. I understand that, Ryan. What I'm saying is that there was I just to speak to the communication, there was never, hey, that sit down or a document where you said, hey, this is how to do this, this is how to do that, this is what this function does. And I think that that would be important for anybody to have to say that you're the only one that could know how to ever use the function.
No, okay.
Is a little ridiculous.
No, that's just not true. But with some of the more advanced things, if you're swapping out a contract, it can run literally thousands and thousands of sub transactions in between. And if you don't actually understand how these different contracts talk to each other, 25 plus contracts, when you're changing out drips or doing different things, if you don't truly understand what's going to happen when you do something, then you can break it. So I didn't give you the ability to operate any functions that could totally break the token. Because
right. So when you speak of breaking it and locking it up, I believe what you're speaking about in theory is the
no longer being able to no longer
buyer.
No, I'm referring to no longer being able to transfer a token ever, having it totally forever.
Correct. Locked. But when you said you had to come behind me and clean that up, I just want to get clarity on this. You were referring to setting the custom buyer contract functions. Correct.
That particular thing.
Which I don't.
It was looking to push out drips, and it was hitting an error at that point, so it was failing.
Which I don't have which I don't have the ability to do. Correct.
So there are certain ones that you can't switch it to, and I explained that to you. You can't switch it to flavors. If you switch to flavors, it will lock it up, and I explained that to you. You can't switch it just to a couple that don't have. If you switch it to one that doesn't have a standard liquidity pool, that will freeze it up. So the particular thing that you did was you switched it over to what was it? It was Surge BTC or
Surge
something
BTC.
Like right. So that one locked it up for a little bit. I came in, I fixed it. So
correct. Can you just clarify for me how did you fix it? You just changed it?
Yeah.
To something else, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So Ryan, that was not a permanent issue. But some of the other things, like upgrading a contract or doing some other of the things that you don't have the ability to do, are a permanent lock. Right. So the one that happened that you do have access to, that was a temporary lock. So that's why it's, in my opinion, it was still okay to give you that ability. Because it was something that could be fixed, but if it's something that could not be fixed,
you just change the drip back to
correct.
It just doesn't really cause any real harm. All right,
but
I just want to move on because
Yeah.
I want to get into like kind of while I have you here, and while we got this in the public forum, I want to get into kind of like what started all of this. You know what I mean? And I want to talk about the transactions submitted by the community and kind of get now
Have
your
you read
opinion on
through
those.
the document? You've only read the first couple sentences and the last couple sentences because you only saw those.
I haven't
So it's
seen
37
your
pages
doc.
long. You need to read it. You need to read the whole
I
thing,
haven't
every
seen your
single word.
We don't
document.
have access. You
Yeah,
Okay, I
blocked
just
us.
posted it again.
okay.
Can I post it to the top?
Yeah, please. Yeah, I would love to read your document, but I love to have you while I have you up here. Just kind of discuss your mindset for the last month and a half while these transactions were presented by the community and you kind of didn't want to answer them or didn't feel like they
No,
deserved
no,
the answer or whatever it was.
that's not been the case. It's that the manpower required to itemize and go through a transaction that is one of these advanced transactions that has thousands of sub transactions is extremely time consuming, and it's simply not going to happen. So what I do is I keep a running tab going. If I send any of my funds into a flavors contract, I just have a notepad open. It's a running tab. I'll put like minus 0.1 BNB, which means I am down 1 point BNB. Project owes me one. And then if later something comes out of a flavors contract back into my wallet, I'll change it. So if I take out like 0.2, and then so I will change that. I'll add it, and I just keep a running total. That's the way, the best, most efficient way to keep track of this stuff. When I'm doing, I averaged this last year 1 transaction every 18 and a half minutes for this last year. So I've done over 30,000 transactions in this last year that were manual transactions where I clicked the button. Not a bot doing it, me actually doing a transaction myself. There is so much going on. When I'm right in this headspace, figuring something out, I'm just solving a puzzle, right? So I'm going through, doing what needs to be done. I'm keeping track. I'm keeping a running tab going. Going back for me to see what exactly I was doing literally takes days. So I went through this document that Rover. I had Chris pick out something at random. It turned out to be, one of the biggest discrepancies in there. And it took me 2 days. It took me 2.5 days. And I could probably spend another 3 weeks before everything's itemized. Exactly. It is extremely time consuming. So when you look at BSC scan, you are looking at the tip of the iceberg on a transaction. It might say transfer, okay? But transfer is just the function that was called. There could be thousands and thousands of other transactions that happen that BSC scan doesn't show. And to view those, the only way to do it is to go into something called the debug trace logs. And a debug trace log is just data. It's all hexadecimal, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or A, B, C, D, E, F, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's just a bunch of that. And you have to know how to decode that. And to decode that for thousands and thousands of transactions is extremely time consuming. I mean, it would take me years to go through every transaction that I've done and have them all fully explained like that. I just do the work that needs to be done to solve the problem that I'm doing. I've never taken anything more than the costs that I have incurred developing the project.
Awesome.
In case anybody is blocked by Ryan, I posted it myself to the top if anybody wants to check out the article he wrote.
Awesome. So you have the seven transactions that I sent you. They kind of started at the end, right? Like those transactions really started with at the end, not at the beginning, right? But those started with either tokens. I believe all those were tokens. Some of them were being, maybe 1 or 2 were BNB, leaving the creamery and going into your personal wallets. And with those transactions, while I do understand, some of these more complex transactions, those transactions to me should have been pretty easy to explain, right? Because they're not coming back in and out of the contract. Those are going into your personal wallets and for the most part being sold off for BNB, correct?
I don't know what transactions you're talking about. I know you gave me a list. I never took a few weeks to dive into them, so I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. I don't know what transaction you're talking about exactly.
Awesome, and I think that's the key to why we got how we got to this point, right? There's several documents. There's several documents from the community that and several transactions from the community that they've questioned and they want answers for. I believe one of the members of the community created his own document, for better or worse or whatever, accusing you of taking 200 and something, being cashing out directly. There were the 7 transactions that I sent you, and I asked you to answer for, from the community. Again, guys, this wasn't me. I did not want to spend my Christmas Eve, Christmas, combing through the blockchain, looking at all these transactions. But your failure to kind of like answer for these transactions for 3 weeks and to kind of ignore them or be dismissive of them kind of led us here.
If I have
And
to spend, so every 17 and a half minutes or so, I do a transaction. If I have to spend a week explaining each one of those, what the hell's ever going to get done?
no, you're absolutely right, Ryan. But that's why I gave you 7. It was either 7 or 8 transactions to explain. I believe one you did explain, which was the XUSD pool that you had cashed out, and put into and invested in Surge. But there were 7
Okay,
transactions.
no. Okay. And the way that you are saying that is totally false and misleading. That is, I did not take money from the project to invest it in Surge for myself. That's absolutely not what happened.
Okay, can you explain what happened?
Any money that I wish you would read this thing, Jared. I wish that you all would read this thing because I've answered all these questions extremely clearly with okay. Any money that I've taken out of the project has been for the project or to repay myself for the project. There's lots of different expenses that went into this thing on my end. So you come in and you say, you took X amount of things, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what was my expenses? What was my gas? What was any of this? Do you even have the other side of the equation? Do you even know if that first number is correct? Like,
no, 100%, and I think that's why when the team when Martin and I sat down in the meeting with you, right? I think that was the clarity that we were looking for at that time back in mid December, right? Around December 19th, maybe, right? That's the clarity that we've been looking for the last 3 weeks, right? Like, and I think we made that clear. We said, hey, Ryan, we're going to give you a list of transactions, and we're going to go through these transactions together as a team. And
okay.
that never happened, right? But you were
Because
given the list of transactions, and I think and if we go through the conversation that me and you had, it's pretty clear that my intention was to answer these questions for the community. There was a lot of pressure on me in the community to answer these questions. I don't know how long you've been in here, but I'll state it again. There's a whole set of people that came over from Not Safe Moon that believe that you have been that you were draining and taking tokens from that project, and these people migrated over to flavors, and they seen similar patterns, and they alerted me, they alerted other members of the community, and that deserved, at least for me, something to answer for, right? Because the whole time that you were away and you took your hiatus, these were,
working on XUSD, or sorry, not XUSD. I was working on Flavor X. I was working on staking pools. I never took a hiatus. I never stopped working on any of this. I stepped back from social media because it became such a shit show, but I never stopped. I never stopped working on any of this stuff. In fact, the deadline that you say, you kept saying that I never delivered anything. One of the deadlines you said I never delivered hasn't even happened yet. It's in 5 days. I mean, that was my next deadline. There's nothing that's never been.
Yeah, right.
But listen, these transactions, to answer your question, it's not 7 transactions. It's not 7 transactions. It's thousands and thousands of transactions across multiple different wallets, multiple different bots, multiple different chains. All of this stuff has to come into consideration for these 7 transactions. It does.
Why does it have to be so complicated?
So to me, hold on one second, guys, because I didn't have my hand up and my damn arm is sore from having my hand up so long trying to ask this question. So, I'm not one of these typical DeFi investors. I'm not blaming anybody for anything. I lost about 2,500 on flavors. This comes with it, right? This comes with DeFi. Shit happens. But the jargon I've been seeing around Twitter is that somebody stole
Right.
money.
And
And
that's wrong. That's wrong.
and
Nobody stole money.
but in my
That-
mind, I'm running it through my mind, and as I hear you speak, Ryan, and you're saying, oh, people don't understand these things and all that. You as a developer, to me, it seems like that would be something that you can orchestrate in order to steal money to make it so confusing for people.
Sure, absolutely.
Because you keep saying that we wouldn't understand. So
Right, but
to me,
now believe me this. If I wanted to steal some money, you wouldn't find it. You wouldn't even know that wallet. You wouldn't. Okay, you wouldn't.
right. So that's the same thing as saying there's too many transactions to know what happened.
No, it's not. It's not. There are too many transactions. There are multiple bots that were running for flavors. There was one that was running for the useless app to keep us on the top of the rankings, the Eclipse rankings on their app. There's the one that automated the actions from the creamery. There's a lot of things happening in the background constantly that
So what
are
I'm hearing,
confusing.
so we have a room full of people in DeFi. We have you yourself. You're a very intelligent individual. Mark is in here, very intelligent individual. What this sounds like to me is that the block, I would lose confidence in the blockchain as something that's measurable and something that can be contained and keep track of transactions. If you're saying that it's impossible to track down these transactions because there's thousands of them,
I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's very difficult.
why be in DeFi for any of us then if the blockchain is not going to keep everybody transparent and keep things 100%? I'm kind of confused on the
Everything
whole
is
process.
there. Everything is there. But
Can I just say something? Every time you call a function in a contract, that is considered a transaction. Maybe that'll clear it up. So every single time, it's not like somebody's actually just shifting around money and wallet to wallet. Every single time you call a function up, that is a transaction.
Right, and so with that said, right, like it's a difference between, hey, money going into this wallet and money going into that wallet and money going into someone's personal wallet. And what's really sad to me right now at this point is that this is a conversation that we could have had weeks ago. Everything could have been cleared up. I could have. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, right? We could have cleared up the transactions that the community had. I know we got community members down here in the crowd that were adamant that about these transactions and really wanted answers because they wanted to make sure that their money was, being invested. You know what I mean, and being taken care of. And I don't think that that's something that I don't think these transactions are that complicated, right? And I said that to you in the talk when you told me the same thing you said here. I said, okay, is there a transaction where the money leaves your wallet and goes, or the tokens leave your wallet and go back to the creamery? Like, you know what I mean? And the way it comes
there
off
are.
is
I mean, I can send you one right now where I sent $20,000 worth of flavors back into the creamery.
Right, that's the $20,000 that you pulled from the XUSD flavors pool that you made and transferred to a personal wallet. We called you right, and Martin and I called you out.
It wasn't calling me out. It was pointing out. It was pointing it out. You're saying it in a way as if I was stealing money. It wasn't. I keep a running.
Ryan, what I'm saying is,
tab.
I don't know what you are doing unless you tell me, right? So, which is why we've been trying to have a conversation.
I would not get anything done if I had to call you every 17 minutes before I click the button.
Give me 1 second, Ryan. Ryan, give me 1 second. I don't know what you're doing unless you tell me, right? So, guess what?
Nothing
This
would
is the
get
first
done.
time I'm hearing about. Oh, give me 1 second. This is the first time I'm hearing about the bot you have running for the useless.
That's not true.
For the useless.
Can I comment?
I showed you that. I showed you that bot. I sent you screenshots multiple times, dude.
Can I comment?
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, I'm not involved in this in any way. I don't like to get on either side. I'm usually in the middle, but there's just a few things I want to point out. So regardless of bots, all transactions on a blockchain are synchronous. They all happen one after the next.
Right.
So regardless of a bot running, it wouldn't confuse these transactions at all. The transaction would still be what it is. It wouldn't get mixed up. It wouldn't obfuscate things. It wouldn't complicate it at all. If it was a bot transaction, you'd see it. You'd see which private key, which key the bot owns, and you'd see it call the transaction, and you'd see it do what it has to do.
I mean, not every time you want it, actually.
Well, you can't have a transaction happen at the same time as another one. That's impossible. So there's no way the bots, like the creamery function, that costs a lot of gas. I assume that's called once per day.
Well, if that's called, no other transactions happen. If you're doing a transaction that's like a permitted one through a proxy, then you can have a wallet never even pop up. It's just
one of these 7 transactions have that functionality.
I don't even remember what 7 transactions he's talking about. I don't.
I have no idea either. I'm just listening. So I just wanted to
produce
right. And there's
these
but
transactions.
What I'm saying with the multiple with bots and things running, I'm saying there are a lot. So I have a script that I run on the bot wallets, and I will add up the gas. I will run a script when I do a transaction. I have a notepad going, and I will put the transaction hash into the notepad, and eventually I will put them into the script. It'll total up my gas, and I'll reimburse myself. I will take it out of the funds that are there, and the project knew that these things would be reimbursed from the project to me, the expenses to run it. So for things like pushing out the drips, and if you look through this 30 whatever pages of stuff that I went through, you'll see all this stuff in there and the code for all the things that all this stuff that I'm talking about. If you want to verify stuff to see, transferring balances properly and all these different things. Where was I going? But the
I think this goes back to another major point, right? So the team, right? The team gave you a sheet, right? A spreadsheet, right? After a conversation with 7 transactions on it that now you are saying that you haven't seen, you haven't looked at.
I saw it. No, you gave it to me, and I started looking at it, and I went, "This is going to take me an eternity to go through," and I didn't.
Now, for those transactions, will you say, because I've looked at those transactions. Those are ones that I highlighted. One of them in there happens to be the 4 million you airdropped one of your wallets during the 4 million tokens you airdropped one of your wallets during the when we were doing the airdrops, right? But transactions like
I don't know if that's right. I don't know if that's right.
Okay, you don't, right, and that's what I'm, and that's really what I want to get to the bottom line of, right? Because
can you just send them to me?
I will, Mark, and I'm also going to put the conversation between Ryan and I out there, because I think it's important when we talk about the transparency and these complicated transactions. There was a time when I told you, Ryan, I said, look, you think that if this stuff gets out there public, you think nobody else in the world will be able to read it? I said, you think Mark won't be able to read it? You think Tech won't be able to go through it?
But you have to take everything into consideration. If I am keeping a running tab that I zero out maybe every few days or every couple of weeks or every few weeks or whatever, you have to take every single transaction that has to do with the project in account, right? So when everyone says push out the gas, that can cost sometimes $5 right?
Ryan, you could have explained that. You could have said, hey, these 7 transactions I use because I use my personal funds for A, B, C, and D. But we're talking 17 million plus tokens in transactions. To me, that shit is alarming as fuck. And to anybody,
it is alarming as fuck. Okay, I get it. But these things go places for the project. So the Discord tip bot, that costs money to set up, and that costs money to fund for those kind of giveaways. When we were doing the buybacks originally, I did those manually. That requires removing funds from the creamery into a wallet where I can do those buybacks and send it back in. These things, there are countless numbers with the Eclipse bot. That requires a contract holding on to a bunch of useless, and then an automated process where it sends that useless to another contract to increase our rankings. That is just an automated marketing thing to keep our name on top of a list so that it gets seen first. There are so many countless things like this, and you can't just say this is how much you took out without saying what any at all expenses were. You're just assuming that every single thing that I took out of there I stole, and that's just absolute nonsense.
No, Ryan,
why are you taking it from there?
I want to make
that. Where else would I be taking it from?
Ryan, I want to make that. Ryan, I want to make this super, super clear, right? So everything that you just said about the expenses, all these projects and things that
you knew all this stuff, Jared. You knew every bit of this.
No, Ryan, I did not. And you could
have know we had a tip bot on Discord.
Ryan,
Really?
you could have easily tied those 7 transactions into that if that was the case. Hey, guess what? If it if these expenses are running up that much, right? Like it's you know what I
I
mean, if these
told you
expenses
when
are
I
running
pushed out
like
grids, it could cost up to $3, $4, $5,000 sometimes, right? And that was an all-day process originally. I had it automated. I automated eventually, but these things can get very expensive. They can.
Okay, just a suggestion. At that point, I have a manual claim.
What's that?
At that point, I would just have a manual claim if it's draining
We did.
3,000
No,
employees'
we did
cash.
eventually. Yeah. Eventually I stopped doing it because it was like everyone was pushing to get them out. And it was like, this is a lot. This is costing a lot of money. This is costing a lot of money. So yeah, I mean, eventually we did stop doing that because it did cost a lot of money. You're absolutely right. But yeah, people were very impatient and it was like, hey, just push them out. I'm like, it's going to cost this much. It's going to cost. And it was always just, let's just do it and get them out.
awesome. So
Hey,
to kind of go through that, right? And then you and I had a conversation where we talked about kind of separating personal transactions from wallets that interact with the contract, correct?
I don't recall.
Okay, so I'll refresh your memory. Me and you had a conversation. We talked about separating personal contracts, personal transactions from transactions that personal wallets from wallets that interact with the contract. And I asked you, does that seem fair, right? And you
No,
got
I mean,
upset.
I don't recall. The easiest way to do it is just this running tab that I've done, and that's just the most efficient, easiest way to do it.
I mean, you guys sound like the Ginger Papa debate that happened. You, Jared, and you, whatever, Ryan. I mean,
What's
at
that?
the end of the day, all I want to know is what's going to happen to
Well,
the tokens that I have. Is it
I
worthless,
still want
or
to
should I
know
just
what
hold on
happened.
to it for 20 years?
I mean, you can do
Hey,
whatever you would like
can
to them.
I ask you quickly? I got to get going. So in the white paper, it doesn't say that you can take out funds for development and everything or not funds for development. I'm sorry. You can't take money out of the creamery or out of the creamery liquidity. Is that correct?
I don't understand your question. You can't what?
So did you have permission to remove coins from the creamery?
Yes.
That's what I wanted to know. So you were allowed to that. Does it say that in the white paper? Because I know that development expenses from Jared and everybody appeared to, and maybe Jared, can you answer this? Were those coming from the marketing wallet?
Yeah, they very well they very well could have. This is the thing. All this was being done without communication. And to Ryan's point, if you mention something in passing in the conversation, let's talk about like the XUSD flavor the XUSD flavors pool, right? You mentioned that to me in passing, and when we asked you or pointed out, whatever language you want to use, that hey, that money was then withdrawn from that pool, right? You said, hey, I told you about that pool, right? What you did in passing, but you never told us that you withdrew the money from the pool and then staked it and invested it somewhere else. So there was no, even internally, and a lot of this I take the blame for, obviously, that, you know what I mean? Like a lot of the stuff that was going on, the expenses for these things that you're saying, I didn't take them into account, because they were mentioned. They might have been mentioned passively, and even when I look at the details of these, I know pushing out the let's say the airdrops to all our holders was expensive, right? But I mean, when we're talking about 17 million tokens worth of transactions, right? None which well, I got to put it in perspective. I think 17 million is kind of light, but that's what we had
What's the cash
on.
value of that,
That's
Booty?
what we had.
What's the
A
cash
lot of
It's
those
value?
tokens
difficult.
got
It's
burned. A
difficult to
lot of those
tell.
tokens got burned. A
It's
lot of those
difficult to
tokens got
tell.
burned. A lot of them went to the Discord tip bop.
Yo,
A lot
Buddy,
of them
what
It's
is the
went
difficult to
cash
right
tell.
back into the
value of
creamer.
It's
17 million
difficult to tell the
tokens?
cash.
Some of those
Guys,
17 million tokens are the exact same tokens that were
hold on.
removed,
Give me
put back
one
in,
second.
and
Give
removed
me one
again.
second, Ryan. I want to answer Lou's question. It's difficult. it's difficult to tell, right? Because this was done over a period of time, but I could easily say well over 60 grand easily, right? But the point is this: all these transactions are going on. No one has any clue that these are happening, even though you might have mentioned something pet in passive, right? So then I come to you and I say, hey, what's going on here, right? And no one was ever accusatory of you. No one accused you of stealing out of the gate. But at some point, when you refuse to answer questions, when you say giving the community answers is a waste of time, it's too complex, right? At that point, you got to call a goose a fucking goose. And it is what it looks like, right? Because I can't get answers from you on what this is. I can't go back to the community and say, oh, well, Ryan decides he doesn't want to talk today, or we're all stupid and it's way too complex for us to understand. You know what I mean? Number one, which I don't believe, but number two, it's not adequate enough to go back to the community with that information. So at that point, it becomes exactly what it looks like. And what it looks like, where you were taking tokens and cashing them out for personal gain. And again, going back
Not
to the point
for
that I've
personal
made
gain.
over, that's what it looked like, right? Now you're explaining all these things, but we had a time to explain. We had months to explain. I didn't have a fucking Christmas trying to get you to fucking explain these transactions. So my point is this: is yo, guess what? On the blockchain, it looked like Ryan cashed out a shit ton of money. That's what people from our community came to me and for me to hold and for me to do something with, right? And unless you are transparent, and we talked about this in our conversation, now put that out there too, right? That's the whole point of DeFi, is being transparent. Is providing transparency to people. So to sit here and say that, it's too complicated, I took that like a fucking personal insult. I took it like you were personally, well, you're not seeing what you think you're seeing, and this ain't what it is. Ryan,
And you weren't.
Okay, but right, and you had weeks and weeks of calls with the team, people pleading with you, John, Martin, me, for days, taking your fucking mental fucking abuse. All you had to do was everything that you're doing right now in this very public forum. You could have sat down. I'm going to send those transactions in there.
Dude, I don't have time to sit in a 4-hour meeting every single day. I don't have time to spend weeks and weeks explaining something that I was doing after hours of figuring out something and doing transaction after transaction. I don't have time to spend weeks explaining that. I just don't.
It doesn't take weeks. I'm going to send that.
It takes weeks.
Spreadsheet to Mark tonight.
Go for it.
Because
Go for it. Have fun.
I think it's pretty.
But you got to look at every single thing that I spent on the project in between that. You got to look at every chain. Every chain. Flavors on BSC. No, Flavors are deployed fully on multiple chains. So you got to check every wallet on every chain. You got to add up every single gas for every single Flavors transaction. You got to do all this stuff because those are the transactions that are involved in paying myself.
Understand everything that you just said, but again, without you being actively involved and wanting to be transparent,
I was actively involved. I worked my ass off for months. Why the hell would I let this thing fail, man? I put my entire world into this. This did not fail because of anything that had to do with contracts, had nothing to do with anything with anyone stealing any money. This thing failed because of a social fucking disaster, which was your department.
Ryan, and you could say it was a social disaster, but again, we get back to the point, right? This could all have been avoided had you sat down and provided transparency.
I don't know what's going on with the social stuff, though, so there's that.
SoCal, what's up?
I hear a lot of shit of what is this, but, frankly, the way this is sounding is no one in their personal lives would have someone invest their money with this type of discussions going on, And as someone who's an expert, Ryan, I think you're incredibly smart. But I'm
I'm shit. I'm an asshole. I have a short fuse, and I don't.
And that's okay. That's okay. However, it is within the scope of what position you held to explain these things to your team. This you guys were talking about it as a business. And this is what we're hearing is not how a business is ran. It is your responsibility as the developer and the person who can speak this language to translate it to those who can speak it to the rest of us.
And I wanna, hey, SoCal, what you said, and that's you said it when Ryan said, "Oh, I'm an asshole," and that's okay. Nah, it's not okay, bro. Like, like, you got people that lost money up here. I'm not blaming you. I'm not blaming nobody. Like, I hold full responsibility for my own investments. Nobody put a gun in my head and told me to invest in flavors. But I think it's too complicated for you to understand. That's definitely, we gotta cut that out. If people are going to be investing in projects and your name and reputation is going to be on the line, you got to be willing to communicate like a human being. 'Cause I don't give a fuck how smart you are. You're just a man, bruh. So you got to learn how to communicate with other human beings and communicate what's happening and what's going on. All I want to know, I hope Mark looked through the shit. I don't really care what happened. I just hope my shit didn't get stolen. If it did, it's still my fault, but at least I know who stole my motherfucking money. But I'm gonna step down, man.
Yeah, this complicated reading thing is a red flag for me. You know, if I knew that everything was this complicated, I wouldn't have invested in DeFi in general.
I mean, this is a very complicated token. We're sending out 2 other tokens. Those tokens send out their own tokens. I mean, it is very complicated. We're trying new things. We're coming up with new ideas, and there's just tons of contracts that talk to each other, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes. It is very, very complicated. Even for me to go back and look at the transactions that I made takes me an extremely long amount of time. It does.
Safe Moon Homelander.
I just have one question. I just want to know who brought the fucking popcorn.
Thanks, Safe Moon Homelander. Run it up.
Baby Doge.
Slick Rick.
Man, and you know,
like this whole time,
Hello? What was that all about? But yeah, man.
Oh, Ryan, if you're cutting out,
I
man.
think Ryan rugged himself.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Rick.
Yeah, man. I'm just sorry about what happened with Flavors, man. You know, I thought the project was awesome, and you know, I think you're a great guy, and all this FUD that's going around, all this hacking that's going around in the spaces, it's just been crazy, man. And shout out to Moon Matt and DeFi Mark and Leo and everybody else who's been supporting me through my struggle with my hack and stuff. It's been a wild ride for me, man, and just trying to stay positive, trying to give awareness, you know, to the spaces too. And Booty, man, I really am sorry for, you know, what's going on with you guys, man. Jared, you're a great guy. I want people to know that.
Nah, man. Look. I'm sorry too. I lost a lot of fucking money in this shit, and you know, I came in here and I said this to, you know, our crew on Telegram. Like, I came in here like bright eyed, bushy tail, going to change the fucking world, going to do this, going to do that, and shit. And you know, I had people telling me like, "Yo, calm down." You know what I mean? Like Rover. You know what I mean? Rover was like, what's that?
Hey, Booty, real quick. I didn't mean to cut you. Where the hell did Ryan go?
He rugged himself. I'm pretty sure he'll be back. You know, like I had Rover saying, you know, oh, don't be idealistic. I used to tell Rover to fuck off all the time. Like, nah, we're gonna do things right. And I take blame for a lot of that shit too, because I wasn't listening. I just wanted to do things what I thought were the right way, the good way. And I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I probably shouldn't say this. I'm just gonna be honest with y'all. DeFi is a fucking show, right? If this ain't a perfect example of it, DeFi is a fucking show. But you have people that's trying to really change the narrative on it. You know what I mean? It's something that we really want to do. Something I'm proud that like they're doing. Mark is doing with his team over at XUSD and all the people that work over there. Like, people are trying to change the narrative and make the space grow up. But the flip side of that, it comes with a bunch of uneducated investors. And I just got to be honest, and you know what I mean? Like, I'm just speaking my truth right now. So if you feel offended, you feel offended. Like, uneducated investors, you know what I mean? Who and they kill projects. You know what I mean? Like, so even us from the top, one of the good things that I found in Ryan's report from what I read on Fonzie's page was when he talked about how, like, at the beginning, you know what I mean, a lot of the people who got in on the pre-sale and things like that, they dumped from the very beginning. You've seen people taking out and if you were in, the taxes were pretty high at that point. I guess somebody discovered that you could let me get Ryan back up here. Somebody discovered that you could transfer your tokens to another wallet, which was like a 12% hit, if I remember correctly, and then sell from that other wallet, which was like a 35% hit. So people people were in the profit in the beginning when it jumped off and took a 45% hit to keep those profits instead of waiting and stuff like that. So there was a lot we were learning. The space is too new from the beginning. There's a lot of things I would have done different in the very beginning to make sure that we had a grander success. But at the end of the day, DeFi is DeFi. Somebody was yelling at me about marketing. I said, yo, we got a whole marketing team in the background that's not looking to, and you might have not seen it if you was in this small safe room circle, because we wanted to get out of this this bubble, you know what I mean, and kind of get our key investors, which wasn't like everyday shitcoin flippers, you know what I mean. But
Right.
with that said, though, they were back there making sure that we were set up for success, you know what I mean. But shit, at the end of the day, the truth is we trying to sell diversification and financial, financially sound principles to people who want to flip their bear money, you know what I mean, and the more bear money by Friday. And that's the same, you know what I mean. I see Mark pop down, but that's the same thing that most serious projects, including XUSD and everybody else, face, right? Because eventually this space is going to grow up. You know what I mean? It's in its what people would call it Wild Wild West phase, but we kind of even past that, right? Like, we're slowly growing up. It's a slow grow, and I really wanted Flavors to be there as the space matured. You know what I mean? So the project was never really going to be one of those fast taker offs from the beginning, but I did think that the project had legs to kind of withstand as the space matured and grow with it.
Oh, I agree. I agree 100%. I thought it was gonna go somewhere too, and like I said, I'm sorry for what happened. Whatever really happened, you know what I mean.
Nah, you ain't
My
gotta be sorry.
condolences to you, man.
The bottom line is, look,
Baby Doge.
if the community is asking questions, and I look into the shit, and you know what I mean, the shit don't seem kosher to me, I gotta get fucking answers. That's period. I'm an investor too. Like, I want answers too. You know what I mean? So if you can't give me answers, I can no longer support the project. I mean, anybody, I can't tell y'all
I could say the exact same thing.
flavor. I can't tell y'all to buy flavors when there's. I can't. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we do.
I can't tell other people to buy. I can't go to my friends and say, "Yo, buy some flavors." While it looks like somebody's in the background taking all the fucking value out the product. That'd be stupid, right? And I would be complicit. I would be complicit at that point, which is why, you know what I mean, the admin team decided that we'll no longer support the project. The project's still out there. Flavor still exists on the blockchain. You know what I mean? Hey, if Ryan wants to run the socials, he wants to run the social media, be happy to give him all of that. He could run can run Flavors the way that Ryan always could run it to run the Flavors. The project didn't rug in a traditional sense where somebody snatches the liquidity.
Baby Doge.
Udi, at the end of the day, couldn't you guys bury the hatchet and try to revive Flavors, or is it you guys are done on both sides?
Nah. Listen, can you guys hear me, or am I running?
Yeah,
we can hear you. We could hear you fine.
Okay, like, listen, this shit, like, for a lot of reasons. First of all, the main holders of Flavors are my friends, personally. My friends, they were the people holding up the floor and had all the money invested. And when I say all the money invested, I'm talking about tens of thousands of dollars. Okay, and I lost them tens of thousands of dollars. It's not something that emotionally I can fucking recover from. And look, I know a lot of people lost money. You know what I mean? I got people yelling at me who got the airdrop from fucking Ryan while I lost their airdrop money and shit. I got people with 100, and no disrespect to people with $100 fucking dollars. You know what I mean? Like devastated because they lost their fucking $100. You know what I mean? But like as far as the people that held up the project,